You've made your first billion. You have become a philanthropist. You're a horse rider, a skier. You're now involved in Israel's pioneering space industry. You've done a lot of things, only some of which I can claim to have done myself. So my first question, how did you get started? What's the start of your story and the way you got into business?
How did I get started? Actually, when I came to Israel in 1956. I was 26 years old, and you put your feet on the ground and you have to start. You don't have any alternative. Actually, the first few years that I was here, I really was trying to find my way. I started a lot of projects. A ski project on the Hermon, a glove factory providing work for people in the development towns. I tried one thing after the other. Most of them did not succeed, but really I carried on, and I really didn't lose patience, and I didn't lose hope. But when you come, you put your feet on the ground, you have to start, and that's how you get going.
Okay, and now we fast forward to today. And above all, now you're a philanthropist. You're involved in a dizzying number of projects across many, many fields. It would be fascinating to talk about all of them here, actually, but we're limited with time. So I'm going to limit this to just 3 of the areas that you're active in. And the first one that I wanted to ask you about is the area of big data and healthcare. And you have projects in that area. Can you talk a little bit about the inception of those projects and how they work?
Right. But before I get to the project that you've just mentioned, I'd like to just say that once I got going, things began to move for me. I actually founded Amdocs, which is a company that everybody knows. We have about 25,000 people working, half of them in Israel, half of them abroad. We formed Arutz Zahav, a cable company. We had the bus companies. We had advertising on 3,000 buses. I really got involved in business in Israel, and really we got moving, and we really succeeded. Then we got to the next stage, and the next stage was actually philanthropy. And basically, with philanthropy, I began to feel that just the accumulation of money and the pursuit of wealth for its own need was actually not an end in itself that appealed to me. And I felt I had to do something. And actually, one of the things that wealth does give you, it gives you the opportunity to do good things. And actually, once you begin doing them, you develop a tremendous sense of satisfaction. And this sense of satisfaction really drives you. And this is what actually drove me. The projects that I've got involved in, I started off with a lot of social projects, really trying to alleviate human suffering. One of them was actually the Therapeutic Riding Club, where we would use horses as therapy for people who were disabled. Another project that I got involved in was a project which actually is a little bit unusual. We discovered that actually in Israel we have fantastic surgeons. They do eye surgery, and actually with an operation you can actually give a person sight if he has cataracts in about 20 minutes. And I took a project of organizing doctors who would volunteer, went to Ethiopia, and we did operations in Ethiopia, relieving people and actually giving them sight. The first project I did, we actually had 600 people who we were able to give sight to. And that was tremendously satisfying, tremendously.
Big data.
You want to go back to big data? Okay. We in Israel we are in an unusual position. We've actually got health organizations that have records for 25 years. And these records are actually, this is data which is digitized. This information and this tremendous treasure of information which we have is valuable. And this information, if we actually use it intelligently, and we enable and we actually provide the infrastructure and the ability to to use this database is very useful for medical science. And there's a tremendous amount that you can discover. And I set up an organization together with Maccabi, which we're going to inaugurate in about another 10 days. And this organization will actually give us the database that we have of Maccabi, which is about 2.2 million people, information over 22 years. And we're going to use this information, which will allow scientists from Israel and from all over the world to access this database, access this big data that we have, and actually come up with findings which will alleviate human suffering.
Fantastic. Then moving on to the second area that you're involved in, which I find really fascinating, is the area of leadership. So you have a project to develop leadership skills in young people. First of all, tell us a bit about the project, how it started and how it works.
Well, I'll tell you how LEAD started. Actually, I'm a member of a group called Sea Space Symposium. This is a group of people who actually are involved in space and involved in the ocean. And I came to it for my interest in the ocean. I'm involved in the underwater observatory in Eilat, which I'll deal with in a minute. And actually, I met Hugh O'Brien. And he was an actor from the United States who'd gone to Africa, and he met there a very prominent scientist who devoted his life, Albert Schweitzer, devoted his life to the people of the Congo. He set up a clinic in Lambarene, and Hugh O'Brien went to see him, and he inspired Hugh O'Brien to go back and do something meaningful with his life. And Hugh O'Brien went back to America and set up an organization called Hobby for development of leadership in young people. And from him, I got the idea, and actually I set up an organization in Israel called LEAD. But we didn't follow the American pattern of just exposing these young people to leaders in the business field, leaders in science, leaders in the army. We actually decided to get young people involved in doing social projects in their community. And LEAD today, LEAD's been going for 17 years, and we've probably gone through about 2,000 people. They are young people who have tremendous potential. And if you show them that you believe in them, you expose them to people who actually can give them an example of what to do, they organize themselves into projects, and they do social projects in their own towns. And they do amazing work, really amazing.
If you create a project like this designed to develop leaders at that sort of early stage in people's lives, I assume that you saw at the time a deficit of leadership. Is that right? And in what area of society do you see that deficit?
I think there's a deficit of leadership in the world. I think we only have to look around at what's happening all over, and we see that actually where are the Churchills? Where are the de Gaulles? Where are the Ben-Gurions? They're not there. Today, it's the politicians who have actually taken over. And we have our politicians, unfortunately, are not always leaders. But this is something which has got to work itself out. We try to actually develop leadership and values in these young people, and give them the tools to actually do something in their communities. And I'll give you a small example. A young girl, a 16, 17-year-old, she actually took care of a young disabled child, a terribly disabled child. And the project which she decided for herself was to get volunteers to come and take care of these disabled children. And she set up an organization which today is well known in Israel. It's called Knafayim Shel Prembo, the wings of Prembo. And today they actually take care of 4,000 people in Israel. These people, they organize volunteers to take care of 4,000 very disabled children. And this concept that she has gone not only from Israel, this is around the world. And this is something that this young girl has done.
Thank you. They teach you in the theatre, never interrupt applause, so, because it's rare enough, believe me. Before I go on to the third theme, I just wanted to extend a little bit the question about leadership and make it a bit more personal, maybe. You were an entrepreneur, you were a businessman, and you know, life in business is quite tough. And of course, then if you choose to go into philanthropy, there's potentially a danger that you end up just sort of giving out handouts. I can see that that's not the case in the projects you're involved in. You're very much an entrepreneur of philanthropy. Could you just explain a little bit of the rationale for you and the logic of how you choose and run your projects?
That's actually correct. I'm not a checkbook philanthropist. We don't just write checks. We get involved in what we do. And we actually are innovative in what we do. And we look for projects where other people have not gone before us. And it's not always easy, but it's actually very, very satisfying. And I think there is a tremendous amount of goodwill amongst people. People want to do things. And I think if you would only give them the organizational framework to do it, and you can only just give them a little bit of a push, I think it can be done. And actually our philanthropy is really, as you put it, we're really entrepreneurial philanthropists.
Okay, let's move on to the third thing, and this is Space IL. Fantastic project. There's an exhibit out in the hall which I saw, which is very interesting. We don't need to go into too much detail because there's going to be a longer opportunity to talk about this after us. But just give us a thumbnail sketch, briefly, of what this project's all about.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to give you a little idea how I actually got involved in Space IL. The project Space IL is really a competition founded by Google, a $20 million prize for a group to put a spacecraft on the moon. This group should not be a government group. They're entitled to get 10% of their investment from the government. And actually, Mr. Kunis, who was here before, this is the man who we've got to get our money from. So it was very nice of you this evening to invite him and to put the pressure on him. This project really came about from my point of view. I went to a lecture, and three young men who were engineers at the time, they said that they'd actually they were going to participate in this project, and they were going to put a spacecraft on the moon. And I was part of this group called Sea Space Symposium. And this is a group which is composed of astronauts and people involved in the ocean. Buzz Aldrin is one of these people. He was one of the first two men to leave planet Earth and put foot on another planet. This was a tremendous project and a tremendous risk which he took with his life. Buzz Aldrin is a friend of mine. He was here at a party, and a lot of you here this evening were able to actually meet him. By the way, he took ill about a week ago. He got pneumonia at the South Pole, was evacuated to New Zealand. He sent me a message a few days ago that he's fine. So what really happened was I went and I introduced myself to these three engineers, and I asked them if they had any money. And they looked at each other and they said, not really. So I said, right, come to my office, and gave them a check for $100,000, and I said, start, and come back to me when you're ready. Anyway, they came back, and I should have realized what I was doing then. That was just the tip of the iceberg. And so far, I think we're almost $15 million in the drain.
This is the hard-bitten entrepreneur here.
And when I say 15 million and counting, but it's a project which I feel very at home with. It's a tremendous challenge. This project will put Israel on the map in space. This project, when we put our satellite on the moon, we will find ourselves together with Russia, the United States, and China. And then you will have, and Israel. And on this thing we have a slogan, Am Yisrael Chai. I think that this also will showcase the technology of Israel. We're very innovative. They didn't tell me, these three engineers, but we started the project. I came into it about 2 years late. The project had already been going, and we came in late. And there were 23 contestants. But what did they do? The project was you have to land on the moon, travel 500 meters, and send photographs back to Earth showing what you've done. So they spent their time developing a robot, a rover, which would travel on the moon. Now that's not trivial, and controlling the rover is not trivial. And the weight of this rover makes it a very difficult project. We came and we said we're not going to do that. We will land on the moon and we'll hop the 500 meters. Gravity on the moon is very low, and that was the deal. So we were able to catch up very, very quickly. And today we are in the leading position. We're in the leading position, and I believe that our chances of actually succeeding and being the first are tremendous. We will succeed. Just one thing I'd like to add, that the project is not only to showcase Israeli technology, not only to give us a sense of pride in what we're doing, but what we want to do is we want to actually encourage young Israeli people to get involved in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And to those of you who've read the papers lately, the standard of mathematics in Israel has gone down. And by doing what we're doing, we're going to the schools and we're exciting young people about space and science and mathematics, and we're doing our best. We're doing what we can to encourage young people to actually get involved in actually doing the things that has made our country great and will make us great.
Thank you. You have come across as a very careful entrepreneurial individual who balances risk and reward. I have a sneaky suspicion that when you send this craft to the moon, you have half a wish that you could be on it. Is that fair?
I think the chances of me getting to the moon are actually not very great, but I'm prepared to give it up. But the truth of the matter is, if you say I have a sneaking feeling of doing something, I think that actually I'm a frustrated scientist. I love science, and I'm frustrated that I'm not involved in science. But what I am involved in, I'm involved in a lot of biotechnical projects where we're producing drugs which will actually alleviate human suffering. And I'm involved in this project, and I've financed a lot of projects at the Hebrew University, at the University in Jerusalem, at the Ben Gurion University. We're doing research, genetic research on the Bedouin. I'm doing a lot of projects of this nature that actually give me the satisfaction that I actually missed, that not being a scientist.
Very, very briefly, because we don't have much time, I just wanted to ask you one question here. Business has got a bad rap recently, an increasingly bad rap. It's seen by many as a contributor to problems in the world rather than a solver of business. How do you feel about that? What should business and business leaders be doing to address that perception?
I think business leaders have got to do their own thing. They've got to do their businesses. They've got to attend to what they're doing. I think business is a job on its own. I think that the doing of good, the philanthropic side that flows from it, I think that it's a separate issue. I don't think that business and philanthropy are really one. I think one actually perhaps follows from the other. Business provides the wealth and the wherewithal to do things that actually don't have an economic result, but they have a social result. And really, if there's one message that I can give, I personally don't want to be the richest man in the cemetery. I really don't. And actually, the wealth that I've actually been lucky and fortunate of actually accumulating, the using it for doing social good is tremendously rewarding. And believe me, when you try it, you'll find out how rewarding it really is. But not just writing a check. If you're going to do something, just follow through and see the effect of what you're doing. I think you'll be amazed. I think you'll be amazed, satisfied, and really excited.
Fantastic. A great place to wrap up. Please join me in thanking Maurice Kahn.
Thank you.